Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 161. Your weekly little get together. We talk about recent gaming news. I am, as always, your host, Stephen Brown, and joining me today is
David.
tonight, David. He sounded a little quiet. I'm going to turn things up on my end just a tad as I do last-minute show prep on the show itself.
Don't worry about it.
Always good for that. Tonight.
I turned my game down earlier because I was yelling at people in Apex.
Well, good thing that you mentioned Apex Legends, because tonight we are going to be talking about that and just overall publisher woes. It seems like last week's quarters call, as a whole bunch of publishers had their earnings announced, a lot of them aren't doing too well, and we're going to take a deep dive into that. And the reason why we're doing a deep dive into boring-ass numbers is because nothing else is really happening. We have a small couple other bits of news that we're talking about at the end, but this is going to be the main crux of the show. Of course, as always, we are not legal or financial experts at all, so we're just spitballing our own opinions, and I welcome all of you watching to do so as well. If you happen to be watching us here live at Twitch TV/points, much like Dr. Hugo and C-Mac there is in chat, thank you guys for showing up. Feel free to pop in with your opinions, and if you happen to be watching us at YouTube over at youtube.com/GamePointsPC, feel free to comment down below as well. Of course, regardless of where you are, if you like what you see here, you can always support the show by liking, following, subscribing, throwing bits at all that good stuff. If you're sitting on an Amazon Prime or Twitch Prime sub account, I'd appreciate it if you use it here, but if you don't use it here, use it somewhere, because it does go to waste if you don't, so make sure your favorite streamer gets a hold of it. Boy, what a rigmarole that one was. So, David.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get right into things. Like I was mentioning, the way business works is that they do quarters in a weird way. And at the end of every quarter, they tend to have like an earnings call and then a profit report. And here's how the business is doing. And last week was the end of the business quarter for a lot of companies. And a whole bunch of them had their information come out, and a lot of stocks dropped hard. Hey, Ulysses, thank you for showing up. Totally in from Bolivia. Awesome. We have another Latin American viewer with Dr. Hugo as well. I believe he is from Brazil. So always nice to see that. And I hope to God Bolivia is in Latin America now that I think about it in South America. I start thinking about, I'm like, oh God, it's not an African country, is it?
No,
it is. It is down there. I think I know where it's. I'm kidding. I know where it's at. It is clearly next to Canada. Anyways, I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for showing up. But back on topic. It was a bit of a bloodbath. A lot of money was wiped out because just companies were not hitting what investors thought they should be hitting, despite being somewhat successful. And we are going to...
it's kind of a funny time in game money, because the big three companies that have had just non-stop stock growth for the last like 10 to 15 years are actually getting beat by a small company that wasn't doing as well for a really long time. And all the investors are terrified that they're not making the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Even though globally I think they're still doing okay, the numbers aren't comfortable to investors because the game industry's been around a while, but investors still don't really have their finger on it, and it's always funny to me when this stuff happens.
Yeah, and that is what I'm kind of chalking this up a lot to, is just a general lack of understanding of how video games work in general. And we're starting to see what happens as video games move on to games as a service, and they're not only fighting for your dollars but time. But I'll make that conclusion to my thesis at the end of all these articles. So, first up, let's start with Activision, because they have a lot of problems that might be going down later this week as well that I want to get into. So the first article we're going to bring up here is from Bloomberg, that lovely source of video game news, Bloomberg.com. Headline.
Constant.
Headline, Activision's plan to cut hundreds of jobs caps a tumultuous week. If you didn't know... Yeah, if you didn't know, there's a rumor going around right now that Activision is... tomorrow actually going to have a bunch of layoffs starting in the hundreds, because apparently there was some investor call going on then. The rumor is that they're going to report that they are not doing well and that layoffs will immediately happen tomorrow. So as an aside, right out the gate, if you're working for Activision, I am horribly sorry you guys are going to have to go through all this, because you have spent the past 4 or 5 days not knowing if you're going to have a job tomorrow. And that sucks. I get that
seriously.
that's a horrible feeling. But it's still just rumor, so technically we don't know for certain. But when there are key industry figures who are saying that this is going to happen, and I kind of tend to trust what they say.
There's also a ton of people that have left Activision Blizzard, either forcefully or just decided to recently.
Yeah, I mean,
then there's the whole Blizzard fiasco we covered a few weeks ago, where Blizzard isn't really behaving like the Blizzard of old, and the Activision influence is more and more apparent to employees, at least, and some of us on the outside.
Right, and like you were saying, Mike Monheim's left Blizzard. They went through one executive, and then another one got hired and immediately fired, and they brought on another one, and I think that one's already leaving. There is a massive turnover rate on the higher upper echelons of Activision Blizzard, and I know that a lot of people like to give executive shit, but a good sign that a company has major issues is when you're seeing this massive turnover, because these are the people who are in positions to know something is fucked. So they're just bouncing the hell out. Going from this article, by the way, I'm going to read a couple quotes from this Bloomberg article. First off, the very first paragraph. Activision Blizzard Incorporated plans to announce job cuts Tuesday in the face of slowing sales, according to people familiar with the matter, bringing fresh upheaval as spotty results rolled stocks this week. The shares dropped as much as 2.5% to $42.88 on Friday. Keep in mind that back in October, not 4 months ago, it was over 80. So in 4 months, Activision has lost half of its value.
Oh my god.
That's terrifying. Another quote from this article. The layoffs, which could number in the hundreds, are part of a restructuring aimed at centralizing functions and boosting profit, said one of the people who had been asked not to be identified because changes haven't been announced. So 2 things to take away from this paragraph. One, if the changes haven't been announced even in the company, that means the person speaking on record has to be high up enough to have this information ready. So just think about that. 2, this matches what we've been hearing based on, remember, Jason Schreier wrote that article back in December, I believe, about how the structure of Activision Blizzard is changing, specifically on the Blizzard side. They hired someone in to kind of relook at the company to go, how can we make things more profitable? This aligns with all of that. So that's why it passes the smell test for me. And I think that tomorrow you're going to have some really bad news from Activision Blizzard. And it fucking sucks that this is leaked if you work there, because you're going like, well, I don't know what's going on. And it's not like the CEOs and the executives are going to go, oh yeah, this is happening. No, they're not going to tell you until it happens. Understandably so, by the way. This shit has to be timed just right so a company could absorb the shock when their stock drops yet again. This is not good.
No, it's really bad. It's super unfortunate for, well, Activision Blizzard employees, potentially. Again, we don't know for sure, but signs are pointing like this is a thing that's happening. And hopefully if you're working there, you have a nice updated resume.
Yeah, I know. It sucks. CMAC in chat is bringing up a point about how just bring back Guitar Hero, easy win for Activision. This was a story that I had, but I didn't put the details down, so I don't have it. Apparently, Activision is offering voluntary refunds to people who bought the most recent Guitar Hero.
Really?
I don't know the details of it. I just saw the headline. So definitely something to take a look at. Ulysses in chat says, when the founder of his own company decides to leave his own company, it means Blizzard is no longer Blizzard. Yes, I tend to agree with that. That's how I feel about BioWare when the 2 doctors that founded BioWare, whose names escape me right now, I think one of them is Zelnick, and the other one is, I don't remember their names, but they left BioWare. Once that happened, it was no longer BioWare to me. It was just the name. Kind of like a zombie has risen from the grave wearing its skin almost. So yeah, problems at Activision, and that is not the only set of problems that we are having. Like I said, this is going to be a series of bad news for publishers all over. Let's go to Take-Two. This
From
article,
the Motley Fool.
Yet another video game website that we love to use all the time.
I actually read this all the time. So
Take-Two's blockbuster earnings overshadowed by Fortnite fears. Now I'm going to say right away, I disagree with this headline, despite them being a bit, having more knowledge of what's going on. And I'll tell you why by the time we get done with it. So you can definitely go take a look at this. By the way, all links will be provided in the YouTube information section down there if you want to read these articles on your own. And hello there, Salty Frank. So Take-Two issues dropped now, or Take-Two stock dropped. Now, how the hell can Take-Two stock drop? Take-Two stock drop.
Nailed it.
They released Red Dead Redemption 2.
They did release Red Dead Redemption 2.
Well, this is where hype is the problem. And hype is going to tie into my thesis at the end of all this, so stay tuned. It's going to be quite a
Oh
journey.
man, he's got a thesis. So this is going to be exciting for us.
From the Motley Fool. Expectations were high going into video game publisher Take-Two Interactive Software's earnings report. The results smashed both expectations and the company's guidance, driven by the record-breaking launch of the long-awaited sequel to Red Dead Redemption. The company even increased its full-year outlook based on the strength of the quarter. As an aside, great, right?
Yeah, that's
Exceeding
fantastic.
expectations from internally.
They made more money than they thought they were going to do.
All kinds of good stuff going on. In situations like that, investors would normally be cheering, but the stock fell more than 14% in the wake of a company's earnings. Essentially, Take-Two did fantastic with the sales of Red Dead Redemption 2, but it wasn't fantastic enough due to expectations set by how well Fortnite's doing and even GTA 5.
Well, keep in mind that GTA 5 did not crush everything the day it launched.
No.
GTA 5 is a profit machine that's been driven for the last 6 years on being a pervasive, like, not pay to play game, but it is definitely a live service style game that it keeps people playing, keeps people invested in buying shark cards and whatever else, and that is why they've been valued as high as they have been.
Right.
It's not overnight.
And that's what investors, I think, were looking for, is that overnight success that Fortnite has been, but tied together with the company that made GTA. So the hype was set too high. The bar was too high. No one could achieve it. Pin that thought. I'll return to it before this day's over with. By the way, Take-Two is down roughly 25% since October 2018. They were trading at $130 a stock. It's now $93 a stock. Last week was a bloodbath. Square also took a massive hit. I don't have their information here, but take a look at Square Enix's hit. They had lower than expected sales for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Octopath Traveler, a bunch of other things. It was not a good week for video games in general. That moves us to EA.
Oh yeah, let's talk about Electronic Arts.
And this headline
it's in the game.
And this headline here from Market Watch.
Another source we use frequently here on GamePoints.
Electronic Arts stock suffers largest drop in more than a decade after earnings miss. Ouch. Oh, that has to hurt. Now, keep in mind, this article was written before Apex Legends officially launched. Or at least the call was like already out. And they're like, hold on, we'll see how this happens. So I'm putting an asterisk on this one because Apex Legends came out, and we'll get to that at the end of this here. Let's see. Before I move on to that, Useless in chat saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but our Red Dead Redemption 2 single-player campaign is already worth a $60 game. So imagine Red Dead Online as a free-to-play game with microtransactions. I can see where you're coming from. There is definitely a full game in Red Dead Redemption 2, even if it didn't have anything like that. You can get your $60 worth without touching online at all. So I see where you're coming from that point of view.
Same thing Grand Theft Auto had.
Yeah, similar idea. Back to the article from Market Watch. These are going to be some quotes I took directly from them. Electronic Arts Incorporated stock plunged to its worst decline in more than a decade Wednesday after video game maker missed holiday season sales estimates and lowered its forecast. EA's stock fell 13.3% Wednesday, the worst single-day percentage decline since a 17.9% decline on Halloween of 2008. And we all remember in America what happened in 2008, and that's when just everything fucking fell apart.
Yeah, that was a much bigger deal.
Another quote. One of the most prominent issues with the company's... Sorry, let me start over. One of the most prominent issues was the company's largest release ahead of the holiday season, Battlefield 5, which EA delayed until November. Remember, it was the first time Battlefield ever got... Because they wanted to get the fuck out of Dodge, and they still really didn't recover from that.
Red Dead Redemption.
And their planned Battle Royale mode still has yet to release. Back to the article. Video game critics had mixed reactions to the title, unlike its predecessor, which was critically acclaimed. EA said Battlefield 5 sold 1 million fewer copies than executives had expected, at 7.3 million units. So, Battlefield 5 sold 7.3 million units. That is a number most video games don't even come close to touching.
True. Very true.
A disappointment.
Because they're used to this being what rides them like through the year. They have only so many franchises that they put a lot of eggs in, and that's Battlefield, that's FIFA, And that's, I don't know, whatever the hell else EA makes
Yeah,
that's
well, FIFA
sports
19
related.
has their own set of issues right now, both legal and otherwise, with their loot box and Belgium shit. Command and
Mhm.
Conquer Rivals, which is supposed to be their big mobile entry this year. Mobile makes up roughly 10% of EA's portfolio. That didn't do shit, from what I understand.
That's because Command and Conquer fans don't give a shit about mobile, and maybe you shouldn't just retie franchises that people love on PC and expect it to sell like gangbusters on your phone.
Right.
I don't know why I'm thinking of that though.
So the part of this conversation I want you to pin when I draw this all together is that Battlefield 5 sold only 7.3 million copies. Only. Which is way better than most video games. Considered a failure. It dropped EA stock down from an October 2018 level of $117 to $97 as of today. But keep in mind, this was before Apex Legends became what it was. On the day of the call, it dropped to $80. That means what? Doing some quick math here. What? 30% of their stock gone overnight?
Yeah.
What does all of this mean? David, do you have any theories as to what all of this means? All of these have a similar theme. There's a through line connecting all of these companies' woes. And if you're in chat, feel free to take a stab at it as well.
Well, again, we touched on this earlier, but the big thing is investors don't really get how the game industry works. That's my take. We can go through your take in a minute, but Fortnite is a game that happened. Before that, PUBG is a game that happened. To an extent, both games became a household phenomenon. Everybody knew about it. Everybody was talking about it, and they both started making a ton of money really fast. These are, well, in Fortnite's case, it's a free-to-play game with microtransactions, so everybody played it there for a minute. And I mean, some people loved it, some people didn't. That's not a big deal, but it became super popular on Twitch, so you had a ton of people watching it, and a bunch of people started spending money. To where Epic is like a huge deal in the game industry now, almost overnight.
I mean, they always have been, to be fair. I mean, Epic
True.
was an engine developer. They make Unreal, for God's sake.
So they were doing fine, but what did Epic have the year before Fortnite?
They weren't really a big game developer. I mean, they made games, but they were known for their
Exactly.
engines.
They made most of their money on licensing their own engine.
Yeah.
And now they're making so much money that the cost of that license is nothing. They have their own store with a better cut for developers, all this other stuff. But investors are basically just asking EA and Take-Two and Activision, why isn't X game making Fortnite money? Even if they're still following the old school AAA model of, hey, it's going to have this many sales, it's going to have this long of a tail. Fucking Red Dead broke sales expectations, and they don't like it because it didn't have that, holy shit, this game's got 20 million players in 4 weeks.
Right.
And I don't know that you can expect every game to be that way. It's weird.
All of this can be explained with one word, and this word is plaguing the video game industry from top on down. And it has become a problem to the point where it's becoming unsustainable. And that word is hype. Hype to make players pre-order games that aren't out yet. Hype to make influencers talk about shit as if it's the greatest thing ever, not even having played it yet. Hype that this game is going to print all of the money. Investors will be stupid if they don't buy stock. Hype is killing the video game industry because all of these things have one thing in common. They're all selling good, but they're not making all of the money off of it. They're selling exceedingly well. Video games are making more money than they have in a long time, or they keep making more and more money. They keep growing, but it's getting to a point where it's like a small curve instead of this giant step function all the way up because of hype. Everyone sees things like Fortnite, and I don't blame Fortnite because before Fortnite, it was Grand Theft Auto.
Mm-hmm.
And every investor who doesn't quite wrap their head around video games goes, why isn't Mega Man 10 making Fortnite money? So you've seen this massive shift from every company chasing whatever the new fad is, and everything is becoming games as service.
Yep, because that's where they believe everything is going. That's
when
what the future is. Single player games are dead, and adventure games are dead, and everything has to be something that everybody can play together, has to be a social experience, and you have to be able to drop $2 to $5 to $10 to $20 to $40 to $100 on it at any given point for random bullshit.
Yeah, not just the $60 buy-in for the game itself, but all the other shit after, because they're no longer competing for your dollar. They are competing for your time
and your attention.
To someone who's
your Facebook feed
working
and
minimum,
and your Twitter posts and everything else you do.
To someone who's working a minimum wage, this is going to sound outlandish, but it is true if you just stop to think about it. $60 a pop really isn't all that much when compared to how much time your games are now demanding. People have more money than they do time that these games demand. So
I can't play most games. I don't even touch open world games anymore. There's no point.
You have coming out in the next 4 weeks Anthem, Apex Legends, Division 2. I'm missing like 2 others off the top of my head, but all of these demand not just I'm going to sit down and have a 5 to 10 to 15 hour experience, but I need to be with my squad daily to make sure I don't get rusty, or to finish the content, or to get ready for when the raid comes out. And time is finite. You can always work harder. You can sell shit. You can earn more money. There are always ways to get more money. And I'm breaking this down in the most nebulous level. I know that if you stretch your paycheck out, I'm not talking about you guys. But time, there's only so much time that can go around. And these games are now fighting for that. And you're fucked. That cannot grow. The economy can grow. You can keep making more money. You can keep consuming more shit. You can't just make another 5 hours in the day appear out of nowhere. At all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the cap's at. And that's where we're starting to hit with this shit. Because you have companies going, oh, yeah, don't worry. We will make all this money. We will have a massive retention rates. And people will buy it. But they can't devote enough time to it. And that is why these investors who are like, oh, God, yes, this is going to be the next Fortnite. It might even be better than Fortnite, but people are playing Fortnite. Their time has already been spent.
Yep. This goes back to the whole argument of when WoW was big. And I know WoW is still decently big, but I'm talking when it was full fever pitch. World of Warcraft was everywhere and everyone was talking about it. A bunch of tons and tons and tons of MMOs popped up out of nowhere. Everywhere you looked, every company had a new MMO coming out because they were chasing World of Warcraft. And you had people kind of try different games, and a couple games got a little popular, Lineage 2, Final Fantasy, stuff like that. But by and large, everybody sampled everything and then went right back to World of Warcraft. Why? Because that's what their friends were already playing. That's where they'd put all their time. That's where they had all their leveled up characters. That's where they could go and play the newest content all the time and not have to worry about it. And now you have a million games that are free to play or paid to get into, but it still has that same mentality that, hey, if more of your friends are playing Fortnite than PUBG, you went to Fortnite. And that happened to a lot of people. If more of your friends are playing Warframe, then maybe you play that instead.
Right. There's no more time to spend. Time is just as much of a currency to spend on these games as money is. And we no longer have any more time. Our time has been capped. And we're out. Ulysses in chat, actually, he says he doesn't want to get into politics, but I want to bring this up. I disagree with the premise, but I want to address it anyways. He says, or she says, I don't know, male or female, but they say, let's not get into politics, but this is what a country with a capitalist economy allows them to do. Have you noticed that all the publishers are settled in the US, but developers are mostly settled in Europe, / France and Sweden? I think your premise is a little bit wrong there. So publishers, Activision, EA, Microsoft, are the big ones in America. But then you have Square Enix, Capcom, Konami, Sony, they're in Japan. In France, you have Ubisoft. Ubisoft is a French company, massive publisher. You also have Deep Silver. I think they are European. They're owned by Koch Media. I believe that is a German mass publisher. You have THQ Nordic. They're also European. I mean, the Nordic.
We can bring up Sweden again, like you did a few weeks ago.
Yeah. So you have publishers all across the world. Now, there are a lot of game developers in Poland and in Sweden, but there's also just as many in America. California has a bunch of them. Texas has a bunch of them. Virginia, I believe, has a good handful. NetherRealm's out in Chicago, I want to say. I'm not positive on that. You have BioWare up in Canada. Canada has a bunch of developers. Japan, Japan. Japan is like the home, the origin of the video game for all intents and purposes. So I disagree with the premise that publishers are a capitalist economy, whereas developers are a socialist economy stance. But by all means, that's a question. That's something that I absolutely encourage getting brought up in these discussions. And you did it in a very respectful way. You were cool about it. I disagree with your premise, but that's the kind of stuff that I want to see people asking and bringing up. Now I can go back and forth and disagree on things, but hey, I'm just saying the premise is wrong there, in my opinion. Awesome. Salty Frank in chat, thank you for showing up, by the way. He says theory makes sense since every other entertainment industry was fighting for time over money. Inevitably, games will join in. Yeah, and that's where we're at right now, because $60 isn't enough for these publishers. They need the season pass and the cosmetic DLC and all that stuff. And you know what? Let me ask you guys this. Do you feel like a game should be $60 or should it go higher? Because games haven't changed from $60 since the PlayStation 3 came out, but inflation sure as fuck has.
Games used to be more expensive than they are now. I think
Final Fantasy 3 was $90 when it first came out on the Super Nintendo.
Yep. But here's the thing, is if games go up, if they go up to $70, if they go up to $80, if they go up to $90, whatever, am I going to get a full completed game that has access to all the content that game will ever have available for that amount of money?
I have no idea.
Because if the answer is no, then I don't want that. That sounds horrible.
I don't
want games to go up to $80 and then also still have this games for a service, and they want my next $5, $10, $20 for the rest of forever.
I don't have that answer for you.
Now, you do have a lot of games that come out more expensive. I can think of, like the Forza games and a bunch of stuff that'll have a $60 version, which is the basic edition, and then you have like your $90, which comes with everything, and then there's the $115 that comes with every expansion ever. And for stuff like that, I get the higher price. There's a couple games that I could see myself spending $80 on if I was getting way more content and I had a bunch of stuff to play with that initial, like what would be worth 60, and then 3 months later I'm like, oh, I can go back into that game and play this little chunk of content and then leave it alone again. That's kind of fun. That's neat. But if you're asking me to leave all of my time in that game for the entirety of the initial burst and then 3 months later I'm still already playing it, I don't know. It's a little rough.
Is The Witcher 3 worth
the
only
perfect
$60?
video game?
If you spent $90 and got the exact same thing, would you have been satisfied?
Probably. But Witcher 3 is 165 hours of glory.
Yeah, I mean, I like it quite a bit too.
And it's also a game that has an end. You can
Yes.
play Witcher 3 and you can have so much fun with it. There's a million things to do. And then at some point, your content will actually stop and you'll be finished with it.
So
And it has a period on it. And unless you're like playing with mechanics or breaking systems or doing cool combat tricks, stuff like that, that's a whole nother aside. But getting through all the story and everything they programmed into the game for you to experience is one thing. And I could see spending more for something like that.
Here's where the problem comes in. Publishers wouldn't be doing this if people weren't buying it. And ultimately, publisher decisions are determined by demand. So the reason why you see all this loot box shit in games and cosmetic sales and charging $60 for something that should be free to play is because we as consumers are stupid enough to fucking buy it. End of story. Mm-hmm. I mean, I hate it too. And I stand up and I go, no, I am not buying this because it has this and I don't want to support that. And you do the same, and I'm sure some of our viewers do it as well. Here's the thing. We're in the minority.
Yep.
Flat
Most
out.
people don't give a shit. They just buy games. Let it
Ulysses once again in chat is saying, even though $60 is really expensive converted to my currency, I would accept higher prices if we stop seeing 200 layoffs or capping those $15 million bonus to CFO and have a more equal profit distribution.
I'm down for that.
I'm not.
Why not?
I don't believe that salary should ever be capped in any way, shape, or form. That is the price that that CFO has negotiated, and that is up to the stockholders to decide. The stockholders determine that that man is worth. I'm going to use a generic example. Let's use Bobby Kotick, CEO of Activision. Let's say that he is bringing home $30 million a year. It's not like he is paying himself. The shareholders determined he is worth that price. Now, why did they determine he is worth that price? Because Bobby Kotick probably has a history of whatever company he goes to suddenly increasing the profit by, say, $60 million. So the shareholders go, if we bring in Bobby Kotick, we are going to increase our profit by $60 million. We'll give him $30 million of it. He gets to set his price. You want to be a stockholder? You get to make those decisions. I do not believe in capping salaries at all. Now, I don't want to see layoffs happen either. That shit sucks. But the answer isn't capping an executive pay. That's not going to solve the problem.
Then the devs should unionize.
That's another issue that we can get into. I think unions had their day in the sun. They are not as effective as people seem to think they are. And I mean, look no more than, oh, goddamn.
I mean, we can go back and forth on this for a while because
can.
this is
I can run
specifically
all
the
this
thing
on,
that
so
we disagree on.
Yeah. Hey, I fundamentally I don't have necessarily a problem with unions, but when you're talking a multinational industry with where a development team works on a game, but they'll work on a game in Canada and San Francisco and Paris and Hong Kong. Good luck unionizing against all those. You're not going to. I think it's easy to say unionize and scream union now and it'll fix all of our problems. It's not, and I think it's a pipe dream personally. But hey, knock yourself out. If you this the best example I can use is the voice actors. Remember how they went on strike, but that only works so well as you don't have someone that's willing to do your job for less. And I hate to say it, but I think that there are way more aspiring game developers than there are that they can just fill those roles in. And I'm not saying it's unskilled labor. I'm not saying that it is not hard to do, but I am saying that they are replaceable. And that is fucked up to sound. That is fucked up to say, but there are a lot of talented people who are champing at the bit to have their job. And that sucks, but that is the reality of the situation. At which point the next step then becomes have the government step in. And I think you know how I feel about that.
We don't like the government in video games because that's dangerous.
Yeah. Anyways, let's adjust chat here real quick. This says, as I said, we're not economic experts. Yeah, I'm not either. I'm just using my knowledge and my lived experience by all means. I'm sure I can have two economists on here who will take the same sides and argue each other. I'll have one saying union sucks and the other saying unions are good. I'm just giving you my personal opinion on it. I have seen some good unions do. I've seen some horrible things unions do. Salty Frank says, video games are one of the cheapest per hour hobby that you can have, just slightly more expensive than reading. Depends on the game. You spend $60 on the Order 1776 or whatever that game was called. The 1886, I think. $60 over 5 hours. Still cheaper than a movie. But the problem with that argument, Salty Frank, is that the price per hour dollar ratio can vary so wildly. The Order, one playthrough, you're done in 3 to 4 hours. FTL, $5, you can spend 500 hours in. So it really does depend on the game. But I on its face, I do agree with that sentiment. So, now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, please let me know what you guys think about what's causing all this to happen, either in chat here or down in the YouTube comments below. I personally think that we are going to start seeing the collapse of some of the bigger publishers of the next 2 or 3 years. Because they have tapped us out on the cash side of things. Now they have to fight for our time to keep the investors happy because they have hyped shit up to the investors so much that even if it's like the Half-Life 3 thing, right? Half-Life 3 will never come out because of the hype, in my opinion. No
Also,
game
because
can
Gavin straight up
ever,
said it's not going to come out.
yeah, no game can ever match the hype that Half-Life 3 has. Any game that gets released could be the best thing ever, but it will always fall short of that hype. Same
It's like
idea.
going to watch the movie of your favorite book. It doesn't matter how good that movie is, it's different than what was in your head.
Right. Same idea with these investors right now. No investment will ever have a rate of return high enough to meet investor hype. So even if it does good, it didn't meet their expectations. Hell, even if it does fantastic, it will never meet their expectations anymore. Hype has gone out of control over every inch of the video game industry, and this is what led to the hell that we are currently in. But every now and then, as we switch to topics here, and somewhat tangential to what's going on, a company will strike upon something that will stave back the beast a little bit longer. And in EA's case...
We're still talking about EA. Look at that. We're not even done.
In EA's case...
I'm taking over because you've been talking for like 20 fucking minutes. This is my turn now. Because now we're talking about what I've been doing with my weekend, and that's playing Apex Legends. And it turns out a shit ton of people have. So... we talked about the fact that EA's earnings call went really poorly. Their stock dropped a shit ton. I think it dropped down to $80 a share, something like that.
Yeah, it dropped.
Apex Legends came out in 8 hours. That game had 1 million players.
Yep.
Which is a pretty big deal. So as of now, or at least when we put this story together, it's up to 25 million unique players. This is actually a story from the EA blog post from our boy Vince Zampella.
He is the head of Zampella. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name right. He is essentially the top dog at Respawn, the makers of Apex Legends.
He's the boy that worked for Infinity Ward back when they were making good Modern Warfares, and that game is just doing amazingly well. Some numbers for comparison. So this game's at 25 million unique players. Rocket League, which is the game you have to pay for, 50 million. Overwatch, 40. Rainbow Six Siege is at 35. Destiny's at 30. And Battlefield 1 is also at 25 million. This game's been out a week.
Yeah. Absolutely.
By the way, is crushing records of players. It's kind of ridiculous.
These numbers are coming from two analysts I follow on Twitter. One of them is at Dom's Playing. The other is at ZugeEX. So give them a follow, by the way.
ZugeEX I follow as well. I like him a lot. But yeah, some more fancy numbers that we got on Apex. 1 million players after 8 hours. 2.5 million players after a day. 10 million players after 3 days. And 25 million unique players after a week. This game also hit 2 million concurrent players over the weekend, which is a pretty fucking big deal. Back when PUBG hit 1 million, a year and a half ago, that was huge news. And then Fortnite beat it not too long later, and everyone was like, oh man, this is a big deal. And Apex Legends hit 2, and not that many.
For comparison's sake, Apex Legends hit 25 million players in a week, which that took Fortnite 6 weeks to hit 20 million.
Yeah.
So Apex Legends is doing really, really goddamn well. It is kicking
Well, here's
ass.
The thing. Fortnite is a game that a shit ton of people played. I actually kind of loved Fortnite being so popular because I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but every other multiplayer game was so much more enjoyable because all the fucking kiddies went to Fortnite. Did anyone else notice that?
It was a containment game.
No more like 9-year-olds and 11-year-olds telling me to eat my own ass when I'm playing games online. It's just they're all playing Fortnite, yelling at each other, and it was fantastic. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, it was a containment game. It's kind of like how, for the longest time, NeoGAF was considered a containment forum. Just all the wretched scum of high villainy would gather there. And it would keep off the other boards, and then it fucking blew up, and they spread out everywhere else. Same idea with Fortnite. It's just like, here, go do this.
And now you have a game made from a lot of the crew that made some of the best first-person shooters on console back in the day. Yeah. And this game, I mean, it looks a little cartoony more than PUBG, but it runs phenomenally well, in my opinion. I've on a lot of different systems, unless you happen to have an AMD Phenom 2, in which case I'm sorry that you can't play this game. but it also has terrific gunplay.
Yeah, damn good.
Fantastic. And yeah, I've been playing it, and it's kind of funny because I have friends messaging me that I haven't played games with in forever. They're like, "Hey, what are you doing? You want to play Apex?"
Yeah.
Everyone I know is playing this game. It's
I
ridiculous.
like it. I like it, and I suck at battle royale games. To address a
Yeah.
couple people in chat, Salty Frank and Ulysses are both mentioning that the microtransactions in Apex Legends are very subtle. They're not necessarily shoved in your face all the time. It does use a loot box system. I know that's just an immediate turn off for some people, but unlike
Yep.
say Overwatch, you don't have to pay to get into the game to begin with.
Yeah. It's
So
it's
that's
a
my
free version
bar.
of Overwatch with better gunplay
I
as
have
a battle royale.
I have never had a problem with loot boxes in games if it's 100% purely cosmetic. So for me, I'm totally fine with this. To tie it back into what I was talking about earlier, how we no longer innovate, but we just chase things now these days. I like Apex Legends, but let's be honest here. It is a combination of the class-based shooter of Overwatch with a
Yep.
Fortnite style of gameplay with some Rainbow Six character classes thrown in there that you can unlock with extra either money or in-game currency. It is taken from 3 big shooters and thrown them into Blender to create one.
And it's in the Titanfall universe.
And
And
it's in
since
the Titanfall
Titanfall 2 was
universe.
sent out to die, to me, this is Respawn's fuck you to the entire gaming industry. It's like, okay, you guys didn't play our other game because we sent it out to die thanks to our Papa EA. We're going to sneak release a battle royale that's not Titanfall 3 that has microtransactions and
Yeah.
hope that it does well. And it definitely has.
Couple more things that I've been hearing scuttlebutt around. One, apparently Vince Zampella has said, yes, we are actually making another Titanfall game, backing off of his we're not making Titanfall 3 statement a little bit. So we'll see what shakes out there. Two, apparently EA had no input on this game at all. I need to find the article that tracks that down, but apparently this is 100% Respawn's baby.
That's fantastic. That explains why the other characters aren't completely behind paywalls and you can unlock them with in-game currency. Why everything is just cosmetic based.
So not completely,
and you're not paying for
paywall.
actual better.
I want to clarify a little bit. Characters can be bought with real world money, or you have to farm a decent amount of in-game currency to do it. But they're not 100% behind paywall. I know that is what you said, but I just want to stress that we're both aware of how to actually get them, because I don't want someone in chat later going, "Oh, he said you can't buy in-game currency with it." Just addressing that right now.
I do want someone to say that because I'm just gonna laugh.
Fair enough.
Hi, I'm David. I'm on GamePoints. I do almost none of the research. I just show up.
You really are just someone that keeps me from having to talk to myself.
I am the pretty face of the show. Damn it, that's my job.
So, that is the Apex Legends success is one of the reasons why EA stock recovered significantly over the past couple days. Another one that's getting less talked about, but in my opinion just as important, is this one here from Variety. As we move on yet to more, this entire show is business based. Sorry guys, but this article here from Variety. Disney says it's never been good at video games, remains happy with EA's work.
This goes directly against everything we speculated, 2 episodes ago? Like,
yeah,
oh man,
absolutely.
Disney's going to pull that license from EA because EA is just shitting on it. They don't know how to
Yep.
make any of that Star Wars money. Disney's like, guess what? We don't know how to make any video games. As long as they're not costing us money, we don't give a shit.
Yep, and that's why I'm going to amend things that I said. And let me go read a couple
I stand by everything I said before.
From the article itself. The Walt Disney Company has a, quote, good relationship with Electronic Arts and has no interest in returning to video games, something with which it was never able to, quote, demonstrate much skill, said CEO Bob Iger in an earnings call on Tuesday. We're good at making movies and television shows and theme parks and cruise ships and the like, but we've never managed to demonstrate much skill on the publishing side of games, Iger said. Another quote from Iger, going later on the call, is as follows. Over the years, as you know, we tried our hand at self-publishing, but we bought companies, we've sold companies, we bought developers, we've closed developers, and we found that over the years that we haven't been particularly good at the self-publishing side. But we've been great at licensing side, which obviously doesn't require that much allocation of capital. End quote. There it is there, guys. The reason why EA will actually maintain the license, unlike that I thought that some cash was being exchanged, or that EA paid a lot, but Disney had some commitments to it, and that's why Disney called them up to say what the hell's going on with Battlefront, allegedly. That still is kind of a rumor. Apparently, the deal was extremely sweet on Disney, because they're making a shit ton of money even without EA producing copies. So, in my brain, that means EA just paid a flat sum of an exorbitant amount to Disney, and that Disney might only get like a small percentage of return on the games. So as far as Disney is concerned, fuck it, we got paid as long as they don't damage the brand. Oh, the loot boxes in this one game are damaging the brand? Get on it, tell them to stop. Okay, we go back to business as normal, because Disney has their money. That's what this says to me. I could be wrong. By no means do I know the mind of Bob Iger. But that's what that says to me.
Sure you do. I don't know. Yeah, it turns out they're not losing money.
Yeah,
so they don't care.
good game or bad game, Disney is getting paid. And paid well.
I just can't believe how wrong we were. It's just so funny to me.
It happens. Something
I think we maybe speculated a little bit that they're going the Games Workshop approach and just, let's just see what happens.
Where they just
letting it go.
Yeah.
But EA didn't want to just keep shitting out Star Wars games, so they're going super slow with it. And I guess it's working.
No, I would say they shit out 2 of them. It's just EA doesn't know what they're doing. They're kind of incompetent with that license. Plus, remember...
I'm saying they're not just shitting them out.
Yeah.
There
were rumors that Andrew House, the current CEO of EA, didn't want the Disney deal to go through. That was something his predecessor did, and he thinks it's a bad idea. Once again, all this is scuttlebutt and rumor. But, yeah, Disney is happy with EA because they getting paid by EA one way or another. So, they don't care. As long as it doesn't do damage to the entire brand, Disney doesn't give a fuck. So, this deal is going to ride out its 5 years. That said... let me propose an alternate theory. Let's assume, or let's imagine that the clause between EA and Disney doesn't really have a clean buyback feature to it. Like if Disney wants to pull out because EA is screwing up, that it might end up costing them more than they're willing to spend. So Bob Iger, it would be really smart of him to come out and go, hey, we have faith in EA. Because you don't want to say, fuck EA, they suck, we don't know what they're doing for a license. And then in case you're going to get pressured to pull out. Do you see what I'm saying? Am I making sense? Okay. Once again, we don't know. I don't know the brain of Bob Iger. The article from Variety seems to hint that Bob Iger really has no idea what's going on. One of the quotes from the article itself, not from Bob Iger, but the author of the article says, Iger seemed either unaware of some of the drama surrounding EA's recent handling of the Star Wars brand or unconcerned when an analyst asked him for his thoughts on where video games fit into Disney's business moving forward. Once again, coming back to another general thing with today's show is that investors really don't fucking know video games. I think a lot of them still think that it's like a kid's toy. In my opinion. Anyways, let us know what you guys think down below in comments and chat here. But it seems like the EA Disney deal is here to stay for the entirety of its run. And Jedi Fallen Order from Respawn is still due out later this year. Who knows if we'll see anything else to come out Star Wars related. They are working on whatever that smaller scale game is after they canceled the Visceral Studios one.
Just make me a new damn X-Wing game.
Yeah. Well, remember, too, Jason Schreier dropped the hint that BioWare has tried to make Knights of the Republic 3 happen multiple times, and that just keeps getting shut down. So, to tie this back in, once again, to the previous conversation, if it doesn't make all the money, these big publishers aren't interested in it. Because they have to appease their shareholders, who they have hyped shit up to. I don't want to say the publishers lied to their stockholders, but that's kind of what's going on. They refuse to say, hey, this game is going to make this much. Period.
Except for in Take-Two's case, in which case they said this game's going to make this much, and then it made more than that, and investors still pulled out. So that doesn't really track because investors don't give a shit unless you make
No. That's Take-Two's fault. That's Take-Two's fault for not managing investor expectations. Just like how we blame Hello Games and Sony for hyping up No Man's Sky way better, and then they kind of started to walk that back a little bit before the game came out. they need to do a better job of tampering people's expectations, going, hey, you need to fucking pull back on this, because they're in charge of marketing, which means good or bad or excessive, it falls on their shoulders.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me take a look at chat here.
I was gonna touch on Ulysses' comment from earlier.
Yeah.
Saying that they believe Steam with Dota 2 really nailed the definition of a live service game. Minor patches weekly to address game balance, and every few months supplying big patches to overhaul the game, making the game feel fresh and new without having to release DLC expansions. This is kind of how this is how a lot of the MOBAs work. This is what League of Legends did too. It's just a game that you could get some cosmetic stuff and keep playing forever and ever and ever, but it had frequent patches, frequent updates, all that kind of stuff, and that's really the whole MOBA plan. And that kind of trickled into how battle royales work.
Yeah, which is
as weird as it is to call MOBAs the grandfather of battle royale games. I think that's kind of exactly what happened.
Which is why I'm actually looking forward to both Anthem and The Division 2, because I'm hoping they do that thing where every couple of weeks here is this giant world-changing event that dramatically changes the way the game happens. Like in Fortnite,
didn't they talk about Anthem? All the maps and whatever would come out would hit everybody.
Yeah,
so no one would be locked behind a paywall to get the next little bit of content.
When BioWare talks about Anthem specifically, it sure as hell sounds like they're taking a page from Fortnite, where Fortnite has these big world-changing events, like the fucking comet that was slowly coming down, and then it's this giant cube that melts and turns into a lake, and you have to be playing the game to see it. I'll admit, I'm in a good position where I actually get to have time to play all this stuff, and even I'm running into problems here. But I'm excited for Anthem and for The Division because I'm hearing that same talk from both of their developers. I just don't know if most people are going to have the time for that. And if I had to pick a big game that's going to get wrecked by this, I think it's The Division. I think The Division is going to eat a lot of shit because that seems to be the one that people are less excited about. And that sucks because I have played The Division. I like what I've seen from The Division. I want it to succeed. I don't think it's going to.
As much as I want to see that game do well, I want to see Anthem do well more because I am honestly concerned for BioWare. And the properties that BioWare puts out are more important to me than what the crew that puts The Division together are. Well, to me,
yeah, personally. I understand. I just want the guy who's to make The Division to go back and give me either Ground Control 3 or World in Conflict 2. But that's a whole nother aside. All right, let's go ahead and touch on two real quick things to wrap up that really have nothing to do with anything that we've been talking about recently. One, Microsoft Studios is now called Xbox Game Studio.
That is the entire story, but we're going to talk about it anyway because why the fuck not? This is from Twitter. Larry Herb, Major Nelson. That's the Xbox boy. And yeah, they literally just changed the name from Microsoft Studios to Xbox Game Studios.
It's important to bring this stuff up because if we start talking about Xbox Game Studios, people are like, what the hell is that? What happened to Microsoft Studios? Well, they just changed the name. Same thing. That's all you need to know.
What's funny is I had no idea what they were called before, and I will continue to not know, and I can call it either one and still know what you're talking about because it's the studio that Microsoft uses to make games.
Absolutely.
Cool.
All right, David, go ahead and lead us off on the last story here so we can get to new releases.
Oh, this is something that'll interest you there, buddy.
Yep.
Starbreeze has sold back the System Shock 3 publishing rights. Now, a while ago, this was kind of a big deal that I know you were excited about because you've been waiting for System Shock 3 for approximately forever.
Yep.
And a little while ago, Starbreeze picked up the publishing rights from who's making it? Other Side?
Other Side Entertainment owns the God damn it, what's the extra term? They essentially own the IP? God damn it. I don't know if they own the IP or not.
Right? Licensing?
Yeah, I did. The name's not clicking. Anyways,
they're working on the damn game.
Yeah,
There's a company that's working on the damn game called Other Side, and Starbreeze was going to publish it. Now, Starbreeze has walked it back and actually sold the publishing rights back to Other Side, and they're expecting to be fully reimbursed for the costs the company's had in connection with the development of the game. So every dollar and dime that they put into from their end, they're getting back from other side, or they're attempting to get back from other side. So this is going back to being a self-published game. Now, if you remember a while ago, we talked about this game because Steven really, really wants to play it.
Love me some
and
System Shock.
They walked it all the way back to the beginning when they realized this game isn't coming how we want it to be. And
Wrong game. Okay,
is that
so
the other System Shock?
You're getting two things confused. Okay.
Is that the remake I'm thinking of?
Yes, that's Night Dive Studios, and CEO Stephen Kick from there said, "Hey, because they're redoing the first one. They're essentially doing a remake of the first one, and that went way beyond its scope and scale, and they had to dial that back." What we're talking about System Shock 3 from Other Side Entertainment. Now, what I'm bothered with is that Other Side Entertainment also made Underworld Ascendant, and that game sucked balls. And I'm really, really worried about the development of System Shock 3 now. But one important thing to take away from this article. So, Starbreeze. They're having a lot of problems right now, if you remember. I believe they either have or were about to declare bankruptcy. Their CEO, I think, got arrested. I'm not positive on that either. It's been a while since we talked about it. But that's why this happened. From the exact quote from the press release here. Starbreeze and Other Side Entertainment have mutually agreed to sell back the publishing rights to Other Side Entertainment for System Shock 3. Starbreeze expects to be fully reimbursed for the cost the company has had in connection with development of the game. Note the terminology there. They're not saying that they will be reimbursed. They just say they expect to be reimbursed. So something to keep in mind. Also of note, Starbreeze is publishing Psychonauts 2. So if Starbreeze goes tits up, that game might be in trouble as well. And Ulysses, I am glad you are having fun. I definitely appreciate it, and I want this to be a place that you or anyone else who is watching can feel like they can come here and talk about things in a respectful manner. It's okay if we get political every now and then, like you and I were earlier there, Ulysses, but don't be dicks about it. That's all I ask.
That's really our only thing.
Yeah.
Be excellent to each other.
And San Dimas High School football rules.
Party on, dudes. Anyway,
Starbreeze is
potentially
fucked.
in trouble. System Shock 3,
2,
potentially in trouble.
Yeah, System Shock 3. I'm sure they'll find another publisher for that, I'm sure.
Tim Schafer's baby
maybe in trouble.
Who knows? He might kickstart it again. You know how good Tim Schafer is with kickstarts.
Yeah,
everybody loves when he does that.
Kickstart the same game over and over and over again. That's some bitch.
Well, what if he instead just went with, hey, keep giving us unlimited money and we'll tell you about this game and maybe give you a limited demo that gives you almost no scope of how this game's actually going to play, but we're going to keep telling you that we're hiring all these super famous people to be in it, and it's going to wildly spiral out of control to be this biggest, ridiculous game that you've never heard of and will never play. And I'm looking at you, everyone that's given money to Star Citizen.
To keep it back on the Tim Schafer thing, I will always point to Space Base DF9. Or whatever that game was called, where it was this game that was in early
I watched
access.
the game jam where they built that game,
Yeah.
and Space Base DF9. I actually have the game jam version of it because it was in a Humble bundle. And I'm like, oh, this game's cool. And then it came out on Steam. I'm like, oh, I'll play that. I'm wait for it to get a little more balance, a little more stuff to do. And it just didn't happen. And they're like, you know what? We decided we're not going to make this because we don't have the money for it. We want to do other stuff. So bye.
No refunds. Here's the final version. It's still busted as fuck.
And that's
bye. Either way, all of these games, System Shock 3, Psychonauts 2, The Fate of Starbreeze, none of this stuff is going to be known for weeks, if not months down the road. So in the meantime, David, while I'm trying to find out if my System Shock 3 is even ever going to fucking come out, what can I play to keep myself occupied?
New video games. Let's talk about them. Well, if you're not currently obsessed with Apex Legends, like some of the people on this podcast, there are some things you can play. First up, a PS4 game and Switch game being published by Nippon Ichi Software, NIS America, right?
Yep.
Did I get that right?
NIS. Yeah, Nippon Ichi Software, yeah.
Look at that. I said a thing that I'm not good at saying.
Nippon Ichi Software America for Nisa, if you have the A at the end.
The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince is coming out this week. This is an action-adventure, side-scrolling game. The player controls a princess that turns into a wolf, or a wolf that turns into a princess. It's a little fuzzy because a lot of the videos on this game are mostly just kind of story-based. It looks very pretty. The music sounds very anime intro-tastic. But yeah, it's like a reverse Ico almost, but 2D. Like you play as a princess and you hold hands with a prince to give him instructions and move him around through the level, and then you turn into a wolf and protect the prince from things that try and fight you, and you solve puzzles, and it looks very cute and very stylish. I don't know that it's for me, but it might be for you. Oh, look at that. If you don't want to play that, you can play Trials Rising for Xbox One, PC, and PS4. This is the next Trials game where you play as a dude on a Trials motorcycle, which is the one that's really small and very easy to balance. And it's a completely physics-based motorcycle game. If you've never heard of the Trials series, they're fairly popular. Not crazy, but a lot of people like them, and a lot of people stream them as well.
It's an excellent and popular B-tier title.
Yep. It's basically a physics-based motorcycle obstacle course game in which a lot of the time you crash and burn hilariously.
These aren't the guys that made Flat Out, are they? You remember Flat Out way back in the PlayStation 2 game days?
But I do know what you're talking about, but I have to touch on the fact that the new Trials game has a local multiplayer mode called Tandem Bike, where 2 players control one motorcycle, and that sounds hilarious to me.
Yeah, that sounds like it could lead to a whole bunch of problems. I gotta find out if these are the same guys that did that. Go ahead and keep going.
I'm gonna keep going. A Fold Apart hits Xbox One, PS4, and Switch. This is a more casual, like indie adventure puzzle game. This game looks really neat to me in that you play as 2 characters who are in love, and it's an emotional roller coaster of a long-distance relationship where you actually fold the screen like paper to solve a bunch of different puzzles. Like, I'm trying to get from the left to the right, but I need to stand on this platform and then fold the page so that I'm off the page, and then come back, and then everything smushes together.
Oh, I've seen
I'm
this.
not doing it any justice,
but
try and take a look at it because it looks really neat to me.
Yeah, I've seen this at some small game like Indie Jams. It looks really cool.
Yeah, and it looks like the characters have some amount of customization, or there's a bunch of different characters to choose from. So you have that going for you, too. We also have Civilization
real quick, by the
6.
way, no. The Trials and the Flat Out guys have nothing to do with each other.
There you go. Well, Civ 6 Gathering Storm hits PC this week. It actually comes out on Valentine's Day. That's exciting. The focus of Gathering Storm is improving the game world with like weather and other human effects, stuff that I don't think we've seen in the Civ games before. There's natural disasters now, volcanoes, floods, hurricanes, blizzards, tornadoes, all kinds of stuff. And then you can build dams, you can build all kinds of stuff to kind of help you out when this happens. But it has a whole bunch of new stuff because of the climate system. So if a volcano erupts and it destroys a bunch of your tiles, once the lava settles, then you might be able to get a ton of minerals from that tile. Stuff like that.
So I really like the Civilization games, and I really enjoy Civ 6. But I don't think I've played it for like 2 years, and we've discussed about this before, because I'm at that point now where I'm going to wait for every expansion to come out, and then just pick them all up on one cell, and it's going to be like I'm going into a
That's always my favorite part. I didn't play Civ 4 until it had every single expansion, and it's still my favorite game because my first experience with it was the full game, and I thought, I was like, oh man, this game's amazing. Civ 5 came out, and I hated it until it started getting expansions. Civ 6, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I just wait, I guess.
Yeah, I really want to play this. While we're talking about Firaxis, as an aside note, Jake Solomon, I think his name is Jake Solomon. He is essentially one of the grand developers of the XCOM series over at Firaxis Games. He's been kind of teasing that some information might be coming about a new XCOM game, and that hype train's starting to get rolling, and now that Gathering Storm's out, they might start making a way for an announcement on that soon. So keep tabs on him and what he is saying. No promises.
Free-to-play mobile game with microtransactions.
I swear to fucking Christ.
I've been calling that the next XCOM is going to be mobile for a while now, mostly just to piss you off. But at this point, I'm committed. I hope I'm not right. Also coming up this week, Degrees of Separation for Xbox One, PS4, and Switch. This is another adventure indie puzzle style game. This one is kind of cool because it's a co-op built platformer. You can play it solo. You jump back and forth between 2 characters, Ember and Rhyme, who are separated because one of them is always in a frozen world. The other one's always in like a warm, heated world. And the perspective shifts as the characters move around. So the backdrop is whatever the level is, but if the snow guy walks around, everything's frozen, icy, gives you access to different machinery or whatever else to solve the puzzle. The other character warms everything up, so it'll melt ice and change the way the environment looks as well. It's really built to be co-op, but you can play it solo. You can use both characters at the same time or jump back and forth with one button press. And this looks really cool. Super neat to play with a friend.
Yeah, that does sound really cool. And it's stuff like this that I know we were talking about, like the dire straits that a lot of big name publishers are in. And don't get me wrong, I love my AAA games. I love to have I play through almost every Call of Duty campaign, for example. I want more Mass Effects, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if all those companies would go away, I got smaller shit like this that's just as fun. Remember, one of my favorite games last year was The Return of the Obra Dinn, which, if I recall, was done by like maybe 3 people total. So you're always going to be good games out there, regardless if they're big budget or not. Speaking of big budget, I'm going to take this one from you, David.
No, that's fine, because we're going to rag on this game a little bit, because this is something that pisses us off, and it's something that EA keeps fucking doing. So let's go.
This week, Anthem releases. I don't fucking care that EA says officially it comes out next week. You're putting the full game on Origin for people who buy your Origin Premier or whatever the fuck that's called. This game is fucking out. Remember our stance. If your game is charging a full price to let people get a hold of it, you can be fucking judged. This game releases this Friday on PC. Everyone else is punished for not ponying up the money to get Origin Premier. Fuck this staggered release bullshit.
This is their counter to charging. This is how they charge more for a game. You have to have your fucking fancy Origin nonsense to play Anthem on its actual release date. Everybody that plays it on the 22nd is just getting the game late. Yeah. Don't listen to EA.
Don't buy the propaganda when they say, "Hey, pay this much," or it's a perk from joining this club. You get things early. No, fuck that. You get things on the date they were released. Everyone else gets screwed.
That aside, Anthem I'm really excited to play Anthem. I think it's real fun.
I do want to play Anthem.
I have to wait because of the fucking EA.
I can be pissed off about some aspects of the game, but be really into some other aspects of it. It's almost like you don't have to have an all or nothing stance on some shit.
What? What are you talking about? Anybody that rides the fence is indecisive, and you can't trust neutrals. Anyway. Besides Anthem coming out twice for some fucking reason, a game is finally coming out 5 years later. Crackdown 3 hits Xbox One and PC. This is that open world police game that's a sequel to Crackdown 2 that came out approximately 9 fucking years ago, and we've been teased about it nonstop ever since. This one is Terry Crews fueled, and I doubt it has any of the shit that we saw at the tech demo just 2 years ago.
Hey, listeners, thanks for dropping by, man. You have a good night. Take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, as a lot of my rumor mill stuff, because sometimes shit changes, and sometimes who I speak to's opinion might not be the opinion of everyone that has played it. But from what I hear, Crackdown 3 is bad. We're talking like a game that's going to get like 5s and 6s on Metacritic kind of bad.
Damn. I mean, I could see it not living up to the hype because it's been in development forever and had all kinds of development hell, from what I'm assuming, just because of the way this game's been pitched and built and redone and rehashed and everything else. There's so many rumors of this game being canceled over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I am hearing bad things about Crackdown.
The biggest thing I can tell you right now is that the game does not support Xbox parties at launch. You cannot play the multiplayer mode with friends. You can play co-op, but you can't play multiplayer with friends. You can't queue that way.
That kind of fuckery jives with what I'm hearing about how the game performs. But once again, don't take my word for it. Wait for the reviews to come out. The person that I was speaking with might just have had a bad run with it. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, luckily, if you listen to this show enough, you didn't pre-order it. Because we don't pre-order anything, right?
No,
we don't believe in it. Because you shouldn't pay for things unless you can get it. Unless you're putting something on layaway, in which case that's solid. Paying a little bit at a time until you get it. That's
layaway. What are you, like some fucking 70s mom? Jesus
Nah,
Christ.
dude. I am a Kmart spokesperson. I'm just kidding. Also coming out this week, Dragons, Dawn of the New Riders for Xbox One, PS4, Switch, and PC. This game is based in the How to Train Your Dragon universe. Right? Okay. That's what it's called?
Yep.
I think that's a DreamWorks animated movie about this kid that finds a dragon and then goes on to fight people that don't have dragons.
Some shit about Vikings and dragons.
And then his dad does something, and I think he kisses a girl at the end.
I say
this
that,
is about not
like
that guy. Movie. This is about some other kid that also finds a dragon and then goes on an adventure. This is a top-down styled adventure game where you get a dragon, you fly around, you kill stuff. It looks very kiddie, to my opinion.
Well, it's a kid's movie. So
It's good kids franchise. Looks like a kid video game, but it's on every damn thing. So maybe if you really love How to Train Your Dragon, then there you go. Also, Salty Frank, thanks for having my back. Layaway is fantastic as it is a responsible way of making large purchases. See?
my stance of it is, if you're short
They
on the
get
money
me.
to actually buy a big purchase, you should probably be reinvesting that money into savings. But hey, that's between you and your checkbook.
I'm sorry. The last time you bought a car, did you buy it all at once?
No, but I had a payment plan set up in such a way, because we're talking like a $10,000 purchase. We're not talking like a $700 TV.
It's just a smaller version of buying a car. Guess
No.
what? You still need a television to play all these video games we're talking about.
Once again, if you're having to put a $700 TV on layaway, not to knock people who are doing it, but I would say you probably need to take a closer look at your finances and reevaluate what you're spending things on.
Also, if you're putting a $700 TV on layaway, you're getting robbed because there's way cheaper TVs. TVs are actually cheaper than they've ever been right now. It's a weird phenomenon that we don't talk about on this show, but it's definitely happening. You can buy like a 55-inch 4K Roku built-in TV for like $250 at
That's
Walmart.
true.
It's stupid.
true.
I don't even understand what's happening. Damn. I put a 32-inch TV on layaway once.
God damn, I hate you.
Oh man, also coming out this week, Far
Jesus
Cry
fucking
New
Christ.
Dawn. This is Xbox One, PS4, and PC. This is the spin-off Far Cry game that's probably based on the exact map of Far Cry 5, but a different
absolutely
story.
is.
Takes place later, and it happens to be the, I think, bad ending of
It
Far
is,
Cry
well,
5?
it's 17 years
there's-
after the spoilers for the Far Cry 5. Nuclear apocalypse happens. And it is the same map. It's kind of like how Far Cry Primal used the same map to Far Cry 4, etc. I am currently
Or how Blood Dragon
playing-
used the one for Far Cry 3.
Yeah, I'm currently playing this game. I will be doing the review for it for GameCritics.com. You can go take a look at there when it goes up. No, I can't tell you anything about it, unfortunately. And I can't even do the blink X number of times, because I think someone kind of got wise to that.
I can tell you, because I don't get to play any fucking video games, because no one sends me codes because I have a big damn mouth. This game bait and switched us because you don't play as the cool two female protagonists that were totally wrecking the world, because I wanted to play as the evil people and wreck cities for a change.
I didn't know you actually thought you'd be, I didn't know you'd think that you can do that. Like the Far Cry companies have always been the villains.
I know, but that's what I wanted it to be. I wanted, oh man, there's like these two chicks that are going around terrorizing people. That sounds fun to me. But no, you play as some random custom created character who then fights against these girls and helps towns defend themselves, just like every other fucking game that's got a bunch of towns that are built in encampments. I just think it would be more fun if you switched it. Now's the time. It's a new dawn. All right, also coming out this week, Jump Force, Xbox One, PS4, PC. This game is funny. This is a fighting game that is published by Bandai Namco, and it features characters from various manga series featured in the Shonen Jump anthology in celebration of the magazine's 50th anniversary. Apparently, that random manga magazine, Shonen Jump, has been around for 50 years. And to celebrate it, they made a 3-on-3 tag team fighting game that has characters from a ton of different series. It's got 42 playable characters, and they're planning on adding 9 more as DLC. And you can make your own character, and a bunch of the new characters in the game are actually designed by Akira Toriyama, who's the guy that put together the characters in Dragon Ball back in the day, Dragon Ball Z, and more importantly, Chrono Trigger.
His art style is immediately recognizable. It's also more famously than Chrono Trigger in the Dragon Quest series.
I mean, you can say more famously, but I'm not going to say better.
Fair enough.
Because Chrono Trigger is divine. Jump Force, I've actually played. What? I saw this game at PAX when I went, and it's actually kind of fun. I don't know a lot of the characters, and it's not Dragon Ball Fighters. So it's got way more characters than I'm used to, because I played Dragon Ball Fighters because I watched Dragon Ball when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know half of these people, but it's still pretty fun. I also just
fair.
like fighting games, so there you go. And finally, let's talk about Metro Exodus. Xbox One, PS4, and PC. First-person shooter, survival horror, stealth elements, post-apocalyptic Russian wasteland. And there's been a few Metro games. We kind of have an idea what these games are about.
Yeah.
But this game has some interesting stuff. Obviously, you can still hand build weapons, customize things. Pretty sure you buy stuff with bullets, which are also the things you use to kill stuff. So that's exciting. It's got a dynamic weather system, day-night cycle, environments change with the seasons. It'll be set over the course of one in-game year. But this game is interesting because this is the first title by 4A Games, the company that's putting this game together, that uses Denuvo, which is an anti-tamper DRM system that is complete fucking bullshit, and DRM is the ruination of the goddamn games industry because the only people that it hurts are regular law-abiding citizens that purchase their games. Denuvo is a thing that makes games break, makes games not work, makes you disconnect from shit, all in the attempt to not get the game stolen, even though we all know for a fact that people will go out of their way to crack this bullshit within 7 minutes of the game releasing. It happens every fucking time. Metro Exodus does look damn good in retrospect.
Man, I really want to play Metro Exodus, but there's no buzz about it, and the only buzz that let me phrase that. There's no positive buzz about it because everyone's talking about shit like Anthem, Crackdown, Division, etc., Apex Legends. The only news stories that are coming about this game are all bad, be it either this Denuvo shit that you mentioned, or their Epic Store exclusivity, which pissed off a lot of people, or this apparent pissing match between one of their PR companies they hired and another game's personality that didn't get code for it because the PR team hates them or something. This game's fucked, and I hate saying that because the other two Metro games are the other Metro games are good. But god damn, that's just yet another thing to pile on with this game with. David.
Anyway, I'm going to go through this list really quick because I'm really fucking mad at Denuvo, and I can't just end the show yet until I rant a little bit more about these assholes.
All right.
So, there's this thing that tends to break games. There's been several games that have actually cited Denuvo as causing problems. The big one that comes to my mind right now is Tekken 7 on PC. Actually had performance problems, specifically because of Denuvo's DRM.
It's because Denuvo is a fucking resource hog.
Let's talk about how efficient this service is. Far Cry 5 had Denuvo, cracked in 19 days. Metal Gear Solid 5 cracked the day it was released. Assassin's Creed Origins was cracked in, I think, 90 days. Conan Exiles in 30 days. South Park was cracked in a day. Need for Speed was cracked in 90 days. Middle-earth Shadow War, 1 day. FIFA 18, 1 day. Resident Evil 7, 5 days. Good job, Denuvo. You're really protecting anything. All you do is break games. Go fuck yourself.
And with that, I do believe we've come to the end of GamePoints episode 161.
Sorry.
Thank you all for showing up. If you can, we do appreciate it if you can show up live every Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here at Twitch TV/GamePoints. We had a very active chat today. Ulysses, I know you've bounced off, but thank you for showing up. Introspect, Dr. Hugo, Salty Frank, and anyone else that I might have missed, thank you for joining in the chat. But if you can't watch us live, you can always do so later at youtube.com/GamePointsPC. Regardless of where you happen to be watching us, feel free to support the show any way you like, by subscribing, liking, following, throwing bits at. If you're sitting on that Amazon Prime or Twitch Prime account and you haven't used it yet, I'd appreciate it here. But by no means feel like you have to do any of that stuff. I'm just jazzed to have you here. But I do ask that you use that free sub somewhere. Give it to your favorite streamer, if not here. I do stream random video games Tuesday through Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time if you want to tune in then and just play and chill and do whatever you want. If you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can do so at GamePoints PC. You can follow myself, Stephen Brown, at CapitalistPig21, and you can follow David Smith there at PalStrife_Satori. Until next week, this has been GamePoints, and we're out of here.